All right, everybody, welcome to the April 21st, 2020 Mare Cognitum virtual chapter meeting of the Moon Society. I'm Ben Smith. We're going to cover a little news, some volunteer opportunities, then we're going to, I should have fixed that slide. I should have said presentation, then open discussion. Oh, well. So we're coming to the end of the Mare Cognitum virtual chapter that I'm going to be running. My last one is going to be June 16th. I've been trying to get somebody to take over. I still need a presenter for June 16th. If anybody knows anyone or wants to present on a topic, just let me know. If you want to be the chapter leader for Mare Cognitum, it doesn't take a lot of effort. I've got everything written down. There's all the procedures in place, and I'd help you through it. Looking for somebody to do that. Apparently, we are putting on a Lunar Development Conference this year. I'm not involved in that, but we're going to most likely contract it out to Michael Lane, who did it for us last year. Sometime in July, I want to say. I don't have details though, so keep an eye on the website, and we'll send an email out to all the members once we actually have some details to send you. We still have an open seat on the board of directors. You got to be a member for a year. You got to be willing to stay up to date and participate in monthly board meetings. So if you want to be involved in the leadership of the Moon Society, this is a great opportunity. The monthly board meetings are at 5 o'clock Pacific time. Do your own calculation. I think it's 8 o'clock Eastern. On a Wednesday night once a month. So that's that. We have a lot of other open positions. You can check the website. The next slide will have some. We're still working on our vision, mission, values update. So if you would like to be involved in that, let me know, or jump onto Slack and say hi and get involved that way. And speaking of Slack, we encourage all our members and everybody, because you have to be a member to join Slack, to participate. Right. So lots of leadership and volunteer opportunities. Normally I highlight a few each chapter meeting. Again, we've got a board position open up. We've got chapter leader for this. If you don't want to lead, but you want to help the chapter leader, that would be fine too, I guess. We still need to find somebody who will be a leader and actually take care of it. We've got lots of other positions for people to fill if they want to get involved. So, this is your space, your Moon Society. If everybody got involved, we could do some pretty cool things. All right. So tonight, Isa, is it Isa or Isa?
Isa.
Isa, sorry. Isa Fritz, the co-founder and CTO of GeoJump, is going to talk to us about space access for all, building out the future of space utilizing lunar flyby trajectories, which sounds pretty cool. So I'm going to stop sharing, and you can go ahead and start sharing.
I think it's pretty cool. So hopefully everybody else will find it as exciting too. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I get to do the fun dance of multi-monitor. Okay, let me do this and share. So everybody should just see a desktop right now.
Yep.
And there we go. How's that?
That looks great. Perfect.
Is everyone seeing the main screen or the presenter view?
It looks like it might be the presenter view.
Let me try that again. And I will share my app.
I feel like every time I do that, I have to relearn how to do it. Like
yeah.
I never remember how to do these.
Okay. Let's try that now. Share and There we go. How's that?
That looks great.
Perfect. There we go. That's better. Hi, everybody. And I apologize for the fun setup and logistics of that one. So appreciate everybody logging in and listening. And I'm excited to talk to you all about GeoJump. At GeoJump, our main goal is to provide access to the most valuable orbits around Earth, and at the same time eliminate barriers to get there and to operate, and just basically making this this area and space accessible for everybody. And I'm excited to talk to you all today at the Moon Society because I, one, love your feedback on the company, and if maybe I'm missing a customer type. So I'd love to just kind of run through what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and get some of your guys' thoughts and feedback. So I'm always unsure of who's in the audience, so I always like to just start with a, what is geosynchronous orbit? Geosynchronous orbit, for everybody that isn't an orbits nerd like me, is this just beautiful location in space that is quite a bit further out from your typical SpaceX orbits. So a good way to think about this is where everybody typically goes, or where all the SpaceX rockets launch to, is this area called LEO. It's low Earth orbit. And GEO is quite a bit further away from it. So for people that like numbers, LEO is anywhere between a couple 100 kilometers away from Earth up to about 1,000. But GEO is 35,000 kilometers away from the surface of the Earth. So it's significantly further. But you might be thinking like, okay, what's the why go there if it's so far away? Or I guess maybe as a Moon Society, that's not a question that we ask, right? But geosynchronous orbit is just this beautiful location around the Earth, such that as the Earth rotates about its axis, spacecraft that are in geosynchronous orbit rotate in their orbit such that they're constantly looking down over the same space on Earth 24/7. So as you can imagine, this is really great for customers or for companies such like DirecTV, Sirius FM, where you want to have that 24/7 constant access to user terminals. And that's awesome. I started my career in traditional geosynchronous orbit geo manufacturing, those big guys that make those big satellites. And that's typically the only type of folks or the only type of customers that used to be able to operate out there. And I am a huge fan of Simon Sinek. So I always like to start with, the why and what's the problem and what do people want. So most people that are operating in geosynchronous orbit want to operate there because GEO is the most profitable location around the Earth. So if you can imagine, 24/7 access to your customers gives you 24/7 continuous stream of revenue for your product. Really great for, if you want to be buying and selling. But like I showed in the previous slide, there's a whole bunch of problems that come out of this. One, it's just extremely hard to get there. Being about 30 times, 30 to 300 times farther away from where the typical drop-off points means that there's just not a lot of rockets that can take you there. So if you want to find something that is inexpensive, you're going to have to do, sometimes months and months and months of maneuvering to be able to get out that far. So that's the long time to take there. Beyond the fact that there is just not a lot of rockets to get there, the rocket companies also know that there's not a lot of rockets that can drop you off there. So missions are very expensive. So all in all, it takes a long time if you're going to do your own orbit raising. It costs a lot of money if you want someone typically to be able to help you out and get you there faster. But beyond that, and for any of our engineering fans in the audience, there's this area in between the Earth and GEO that is just filled with really dangerous radiation belts. And those are your Van Allen radiation belts. So while you are doing this very slow orbit raising to get up there to make it a cost-effective mission, you're blasting your satellite with radiation. And that typically leads to systems that are heavier, more expensive, just to be able to withstand the trip. So if you think about it, it's almost like trying to go cross country in a big van when all you're trying to do is transport like a small apple because you need a whole bunch of extra support. So it's just not efficient. And what's exciting about, for me, what's exciting about GeoJump is we think we have a really great solution to a lot of the problems that our customers have expressed. So our solution is using an orbital transfer vehicle, which I'll call OTVs for the rest of the presentation. We're actually using the moon's gravity as a roundabout to get spacecraft, other spacecraft, payloads, infrastructure, and services back to GEO and out to the moon. So using the moon, surprisingly, gets our customers there faster to geosynchronous orbit, even though the moon is that far away. And with our business plan, the way that we're shaping the company, with also being able to deliver our customers there for significantly less money, and it's actually easier on the customers because it's just only one pass through the Van Allen radiations belts. So we call this a lunar flyby, lunar flyby maneuvering. It's actually based on some historical precedents. So folks out there that may have been wondering why that sounded familiar, we're just leveraging a whole bunch of the work that the Apollo missions have put together. But instead of returning back to Earth like the astronauts did, we use a propulsion system on our OTV technology to slowly do some braking burns to get back to GEO. So instead of going all the way back to the Earth, like the Apollo missions and splashing down into the Earth's oceans, we slowly stop, and break into geosynchronous orbit. So that's how we do it. But just beyond the cool orbital dynamics math, which I nerd out about, but I guess a lot of people can't. You can't really have a company that's just math, or just selling your math. So what does that look like for customers or for folks that want to get out to the moon and back or to GEO? So for us, we work with basically two different types of customers. Customers that are coming to us oftentimes have their own dedicated satellite or their own spacecraft, as you can see in my little graphic here. So the majority of time we're talking to customers that just want GEO or lunar drop-off. So our missions for them are we do that entire orbit raising, do the lunar flyby, come back to Earth, and then drop them off in a super GEO location. So it's slightly above GEO, and they can rotate around the belt and pop into their location as we come to it. What's also interesting is that for some customers, we offer a secondary type of mission, which we're working with hosted payloads. So after we do our primary GEO drop-off of these dedicated satellites, we have this platform for folks that can use our existing onboard capabilities like power, thermal support, comms, and get their information back and forth. So this, we realized that this was really interesting and could help move the needle for a lot of other companies and even universities that want to get that type of space access or maybe lunar access, but they don't necessarily want to build out an entire spacecraft. So for this, we want to be able to, we're trying to offer a way to just be able to get your payload or be able to get your research into space faster. So our product is designed to eliminate those months and months and half a year of orbit raising. And the way that we're building this is actually less expensive, and it's only one pass through those really painful Van Allen radiation belts. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about what, I think the dropping off spacecraft and dropping off customers into their geolocation probably is the most obvious. But for me, I'm very excited about the missions that, what happens afterwards. So here is just a little bit of a graphic that shows what that could look like. And after we drop off any spacecraft that are mounted to us, our OTV is actually effectively its own satellite. So it has its own onboard capabilities. It's got comm, it's got power, thermal, propulsion. So it can become this test bed, this system that stays in place or in GEO to be able to start providing some in-space services and support to the customers that we're hoping start, to grow this deep space economy between geo and cislunar space. And for us, we want this to look basically like the AAA in space. For me, that's kind of the thing that I always, the buzzword that I always like to use. So for us, we plan to offer either through partnerships, procurement of other companies, or procurement of other payloads, a whole bunch of different flexible architectures mounted onto these platforms to offer, services in space. The first of them just being inspection. As you can imagine, once you start getting spacecraft into the lunar orbits or geosynchronous orbit, especially if this is the first time that people are doing these launches, there might be instances where something goes wrong, or you want a visualization of your asset after you get on orbit. Our OTVs have cameras and abilities to send pictures and stuff back and forth. So we can offer inspections of existing spacecraft that are up there, or document the process of deployments. One of our first customers, and one of the first organizations that we worked with, is actually a company called OrbitFab, and they develop gas stations, and they've already put gas stations in low Earth orbit, and one of our upcoming missions with them is actually delivering the first gas station in geosynchronous space. So beyond just the cool factor of having gas stations rotating around in different locations around the Earth, there's been a really big push on the government side with SpaceWorks and Air Force that basically are saying the future in space is this on-orbit servicing and manufacturing. And one of the big pushes is to be able to do refueling in space. So through our partnerships with companies like OrbitFab, we want to be able to have that gas, that fuel up there when they're ready to go. I'm very particularly excited about flexible computation. So for my electronics folks out there, this could look like software-defined radios, software-defined architecture in general, so that, if you kind of imagine, we want our spacecraft, our OTVs, to be flexible like a regular computer. You want to be able to load up a PowerPoint, but then also do some, do some work in Excel, or insert your other favorite application in it. So we want our OTVs to be able to be flexible, dependent on the missions, and to be able to accommodate a whole bunch of different types of analysis. Kind of in line with how I mentioned before, the on-orbit servicing, there's this huge push to do on-orbit manufacturing. So our OTV testbed is really great to be able to put together maybe some 3D printing capabilities developed by our other partners or other aerospace companies, to be able to do long deployments, long-term, or actually physically long manufacturing of booms, or of larger infrastructures in space. And for us, we're also very passionate about providing a testing platform for universities or other aerospace, new space companies that might just want to get some data on something before they go out and buy their own dedicated satellite. And through this testing platform, we actually work with a whole bunch of universities and academic research groups. So the first one coming up, or first opportunity with us, is actually working with my alma mater, Carthage College, to put together some proprietary products together with them and get them in space in one of our upcoming missions. And we're just really excited to be able to partner with our alma maters and other universities that might want access to the moon or to geo orbit. So that's just kind of a quick overview about the swath of the different types of services that we are offering or plan to offer in our upcoming missions. So the big push, and the majority of what I'm doing day to day, is getting ready for our first launch. We have our first mission coming up in the first quarter of 2023. We're really excited. This will be our what is called the GeoPathfinder mission. And honestly, the main goal of that is, one, to verify the math, the orbital dynamics of that trajectory. And two, to just do the first private mission like this. Being able to demonstrate access to these higher orbits using the moon as a roundabout is pretty exciting. And for us, we just think that there's so much inherent value of validating this pathway to these higher orbits and our pathway back to the moon into GEO. So for us, that's our first mission coming up. We're working with the company Spaceflight for the Sherpa OTV for our first OTV on that mission. But the fun part for me happens in 2024 and beyond. After we do our Pathfinder mission and get ourselves and the rest of the industry more comfortable with this new trajectory and new pathway back to the moon and back to GEO, we plan on scaling these missions bigger and bigger as we go on. So going forward, we kind of want to imagine this as regular bus routes back to the moon and regular bus routes back to GEO and high orbits. There's nobody that's doing these dedicated missions for a whole bunch of small companies. You know, in the past, if you wanted to do these kind of missions, you buy up your entire launch vehicle and you have a massive spacecraft on it. For us, we wanted to buy up an entire launch vehicle and take a whole bunch of customers and a whole bunch of universities and payloads to geosynchronous orbit and back to the moon. Beyond that, we're excited to partner with new launch companies and help other people start seeing the value of making this trajectory or making these trans-lunar injection orbits something that they really lean on. Depending on how fast we can make these missions go and how fast we can build, the grand view for us is to have this rotating constellation of services, this rotating constellation of our assets that can pop down and service customers or service the growing push back to cislunar space. I don't think I have it in my slides here, but I have this really great overview diagram that was presented by AFRL that shows these multiple different orbits and how they all connect to each other. And one of the big pushes that AFRL and Space Force have been saying is they're going to go back out to the moon, but there's going to be needing a lot of support from industry and from other US government agencies. So we want to be able to be up there and provide assistance to whether it's the government or other commercial companies, being able to provide help in the event that something goes wrong. So this one, I've pulled from an investor deck, so I apologize for the revenue centric numbers on this one. But like I mentioned before, going forward, each of our missions has some objectives. Like I mentioned in the previous slide, our first one is to plan out and to verify the mathematics and the trajectory for our lunar flyby, and then manifest a couple actual first revenue generating customers. Our next launch is going to be in early 2024. And for that one, it's, again, taking up actual paying customers and then also carving out some of our space to give back to communities. So all of our missions have a STEM and a art aspect to it. So for 2024, we're going to be launching a university CubeSat and a university research project. But for our first mission and all the missions coming up, we do plan on having art installations, whether that be a little figurine or a statue, or maybe just an engraving of a piece of art or poetry on the side of our mission. Me and my colleagues all agree that having the influence of art and science in missions is important to us. And as I mentioned, going forward in 2025 and beyond, we want to be able to have this a whole bunch of different services in space that we can provide to customers and be able to have a network of our onboard OTVs. So you might be wondering who I am or who we are. My name is Isa, like I mentioned earlier, and I've got about 10 years of experience in aerospace engineering and led product development, both in other new space companies and other startups, as well as traditional aerospace prime. And my background is actually in orbital mechanics and spacecraft control. And in my previous roles, I've flown over $1 billion of space assets to geosynchronous orbit. And my colleague Donald is our CEO, and he's got 30 years of experience in law and infrastructure and financial leadership, and ranging from startups all the way to Fortune 500s. We are a startup, like I mentioned, and we're funded through Space Fund. And we are currently growing our advisory board. So beyond the excitement factor for me to be able to speak to you all and just share what we're doing at GeoJump, we are trying to build up our advisory board and are looking for folks that have experience and interest in helping us grow and shape this company to do some really cool stuff. We're very excited about our missions going forward. And we'd love to, get your support, get your thoughts, and any advisement or, any of your experience and lessons learned would be helpful for us. Beyond that, we're also looking if anyone is connected to universities. We'd love to be connected to recommended universities to build out our partnerships and some of those missions going forward too. So I just realized I think I blazed through the majority of my presentation. So I will, I guess, open it up for Q&A. If anyone has any thoughts, comments, questions, I'd love to entertain them.
Great, that was a terrific presentation, Isa. Could you kill your screen share?
Yeah, let me do that.
We'll just, terrific. That way the recording will just have everybody's screen up now.
I like it.
Great, well, that's very exciting, very exciting. So are you building your OTVs right now? I know the first one you're going to use somebody else's OTV, but are you actually building your designs?
I think it's definitely in the cards. Our first mission and probably some of our other ones, we want to leverage stuff that's already out there. Right. It's quicker. But we have been talking to a couple companies about machining and building and coming up with our own concept. I think cool. Admittedly early on, use what's out there, but that's definitely something that we've considered. Are there,
corollary to that, are there any OTVs that are actually flight ready at the moment?
Yeah, so our Sherpa is ready, and it's going to get flight heritage, or it has flight heritage from a few previous launches with the avionics and comm architecture. Okay. I think the system is slightly bigger propulsion just because it's a bigger mission. Right. And the Rocket Lab Photon has gotten some flight heritage, and they've actually got their capstone mission coming up in May, I believe. And then I think there's a couple other smaller companies that have OTVs in the works.
Awesome. Terrific. Yeah, I've been following that close, so it's good to know that the technology is moving forward.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions? Irving?
Yeah, I've got some questions and some comments. That nasty space radiation you were talking about, that's known as the Van Allen belts. James Van Allen, Dr. James Van Allen was a friend of mine, so I just didn't want to lose his memory.
Yeah.
Have you thought about other, like leveraging the beginning of things like solar power in space?
You're talking about solar power satellites, right, Irving?
Well, I'm talking about solar power as a source of energy transfer to Earth.
Right. Beamed energy to Earth. Yep.
Yeah.
That's definitely interesting. It's not something that I've looked into, so I'll write that down to.
What about there's a big problem with space junk. Usually it has to fall to some fairly large government organizations or corporations to get together on that, but it needs to start somewhere, it seems. I mean, the biggest challenge is in low Earth orbit, but I'm not as familiar with the issues in GEO, but I know it's an area of concern when you're talking about
Yeah, definitely.
civilization in space.
Yeah, you were dead on about that is a huge problem, especially in Leo, like you mentioned. Luckily for us, there isn't as high of a prevalence of the debris out to Geo. But we actually, I met a couple people at some of the conferences back in March and April whose their entire company is now focused on it. There's one company, I think she was doing cameras at first, but then she pivoted her entire company to being able to do the tracking and monitoring, just because it is such a huge issue.
Are you doing like a standard bus connection for these other modules that you're going to connect with, so that conceivably, if there's some kind of like reacquisition for repair or replacement, they can come back and you can have a standard form of connection to these other modules?
Absolutely. So you actually had a great thing that I hadn't thought about, which is thinking about replacing them on orbit. We actually are doing a lot of putting a lot of engineering energy into standardizing, just because it makes it easier on the ground. But I didn't think about the on orbit replacement side. But absolutely, our big thing is we want to look.
Nope.
Uh-oh.
Isa, you kind of froze up.
Ooh,
Still
no.
there?
Yep. Hear me?
Okay, good.
Yeah. Have you heard, you mentioned art. Have you heard of Moon Gallery?
I heard about it through listening through one of these conferences recording.
I was kind of involved with it. I know one of the founders, and we actually launched a few weeks ago a module to the International Space Station. It has a standardized bus connection that's being developed or been developed by Grumman and whoever flies those shuttle type rockets for supply. But each of the art projects, it was interesting to see what these various artists could do with a 1 cubic centimeter area or volume. And there were 64 of them. And so it looks like a chessboard that were launched to the International Space Station.
That's
And
fascinating.
That's out on NASA's website. I'm sorry?
You said it's on NASA's website?
Yeah,
Great.
it's called Moon Gallery. The idea eventually is to have a slightly larger version with 100 modules or 100 cubes to be launched to the moon. I'm on the board of an organization called Space Renaissance International. We had a conference last year with, I think, 43 countries represented. And our main emphasis or mission is civilization in space, or civilians in space, rather than just months and months of trained astronauts. So we have a space academy that's launching a number of tracks of education for young people and funding for scholarships.
Yeah, if you're planning on launching again, I think we should definitely connect, because for us, it is so important to have art and K through 12 and university STEM projects on each of our missions. So
we have a vice president that's her real thing is art. She's from Germany. But I'd be glad to put you in touch with them. Or another thing you could do is Space Renaissance. You can go out and look at the website. There's a lot of information there. It's spacerenaissance.space. And a membership is like less than $50.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Let's see. Josh Carlson asked a question. Have you considered on-orbit refueling and even on-orbit fuel depots? I know you talked about that in your presentation. That's something you definitely want to work with, or at least help other people get theirs up and going.
Yep, absolutely. Orbit Fab has been a really great partner, and we're looking forward to actually getting them up into geosynchronous space as well. And we want to be able to, or those kind of capabilities with chemical or electric or any source of propulsion, but definitely want to be able to have multiple refueling depots in space.
Well, I had a question. So you're going to use a TLI to get out there. Would would the Sherpa or any of the OTVs, would they have enough delta V to actually put the payload into a high lunar orbit, or get to one of the like L1 or L2 or wherever they're planning to put Gateway now?
Absolutely. Yep. So we have the capabilities, or our current mission, and to all the space sending out for our future follow-on missions, has the delta V and delta V margin for GEO, MEO, and cislunar type, or cislunar and high lunar type missions. We've actually been talking to a couple people that want to go out to the L1, L2 Lagrange points for some of the like materials inspections and some of the dust characteristics that people are interested in, those L1, L2 points.
Excellent. Very exciting.
Yeah. I personally, selfishly really want that mission to be successful, just because I really want to personally put something in L1.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and definitely just see what's there. I mean,
it'd be cool
Have
to
you
find
had
out.
any contact with National Space Society?
Not actually in this company incarnation.
I know the Vice President of Marketing and Branding for National Space Society. And put you in touch with him.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate that.
Have you done the Space Business podcast?
No, I have not.
You should look into it. Raphael Roenken, I believe, he spoke at our last conference, but yeah, he basically interviews space entrepreneurs, and I'm sure he'd love to talk to you. So,
what's the name of it? It's Space Entrepreneurs.
Space Business Podcast.
Okay, Space Business.
Yep. Excellent podcast.
Yeah, podcasting was not something that I had done before, but I've recorded 2 of them in the past 2 months, which feels so surreal to me. So I think I've got one on Mission Eve, which is a podcast that Megan Crawford runs, where it's just focusing on returning humans and women back into actually like putting people on the moon. And then I recorded one with via satellite, and that should be out May 3rd. So I'm excited about that. But I have not heard of that one specifically. So thank you.
Yeah. Do you have a plan to eventually maybe put a space station out there, or where actually people can go out there and work on the satellites? Maybe they'll get an order for, we want a new TV satellite, and you could just put it together on orbit and go out there and just kind of slot it into a orbiting platform out at Geo.
That would be amazing. I admittedly haven't really thought about it. I've been kind of doing the whole idea of like the picks and the shovels, as far as like, gold mining analogy. But I kind of like the idea of building the hotel too. So I'm going to noodle on that one now.
Something to think about for
maybe
2 years down the road or something.
Exactly.
Anybody else got any questions or comments? I was wondering, I've heard that geosynchronous slots are highly coveted and there's a limited number of them. Where do you plan to park your OTVs? Since you can't put it into I mean, maybe you can't, I don't know, but I would think you can't put it into a geosynchronous slot without somebody letting you do it.
Yep, you are absolutely correct. Those are like trying to buy a house on the ocean. Those are highly coveted and very competitive to get there. So we are avoiding that for our first big push at least. So we're going to be operating in super geo, so technically around the graveyard orbit, so a couple hundred kilometers above it. So that way we don't necessarily need to buy a fixed location.
Right. Cool.
Is there a way you could make your contact information available to us?
Definitely. Ben, how about I send you all my contact info and send it out to the rest of the org? Or actually I can type it into this so that everybody here has it into the chat.
Yeah, just send it to me and I'll make a note. I'll attach it as a slide when I put together the video to upload it onto YouTube.
Great. And then for folks that are live time, I just typed in contact info.
Yeah. If you just send me that, I'll put it on a slide, and then anybody watching this video go forward will have that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yep. But come on, guys, we have some more questions. This is cool stuff.
Yeah.
How come nobody's thought of using a TLI orbit to put stuff into geo?
Honestly, I think it's just because people forgot. We honestly thought about it because of the NASA CLIPS missions that are happening with the whole Artemis push right now. We saw that there's all of these lunar landers going and realized that there's no way that all of the launch vehicle is completely full. So we're like, what could we do with that? And then looking through some of the Apollo stuff, you're like, this is perfect for going literally anywhere, beyond just back to Earth. This is, a wonderful roundabout to get you even deeper into space. But then putting two and two together, like, okay, extra capacity going to the moon. People want to get to geo and they don't want to pay it. We're like, this makes a ton of sense. And honestly, I think it's just because people forgot that the TLI missions are pretty amazing.
Wow.
Are you like the
Yeah.
Are you the evangelist for GeoJump?
I am. Yeah, I'm the chief technology officer. So my big concern, or like everything that I look into, is the technological development and the technological road mapping for the company.
I guess what I was leading up to was, are you looking for opportunities to present your message to interested groups?
Absolutely. Any opportunity that I can help share the GeoJump mission and the GeoJump plan, that'd be awesome, because we're discovering there's so many universities and startups and folks that have had to shelter their businesses, and I want that to not happen. Like, I want to get people into space.
Right. Nick asks, will all of your units be able to gang together to make a large platform?
Absolutely. That is one of the things that we are striving to do. There's a ton of folks that, their entire mission is developing the actual, touch points and develop the mechanisms for being able to do so. And it's safe to say that we are talking to them to start implementing into our bigger constellations.
Yeah, I like your idea of standardization. That's going to be key.
Yep. I think that people typically haven't been popping into the hosted payload stuff just because it takes a lot of upfront work to think about how to standardize it. But I love the idea of having it be like a USB plug and play. All I have to do is tell people ahead of time, and then I can accept it super late.
Yeah. They're doing something like that for the International Space Station.
Yes, exactly.
Or maybe the next version of the ISS.
Well, yeah, the timing's a little suspect, but this would be inside the ISS, not outside, but
Hey, Asa, this is Josh again. I'm actually able to talk now and not just text. Another interesting thought, if you were amenable to it, we have a space magazine that we're putting together. And if you're interested in submitting an article, we don't accept commercial articles. So articles arguing for a particular company. But I think the fact that you guys have looked at space differently and come up with a creative way to do it, I think being able to write an article and potentially publish it about different ways to look at space and different ways to set up the commercial architecture rather than just the traditional ways we've done it would be very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Also, I am a proper aerospace nerd, so I can lean heavily into the orbital mechanics if that's helpful. Or, pull on any of those types of tech threads, and I can help supplement there too. But anyway, I would love to. That'd be an honor.
Outstanding. Yeah, we have your contact info, so I'll reach out to you afterwards.
Awesome.
you know Rod Pyle.
What
What
was
was that, Irving?
I asked him if he knew Rod Pyle. He's the editor of Ad Astra magazine for National Space Society.
No, I'm afraid I don't, but I would love to get introduced.
That might be able to be arranged.
Outstanding.
I'm not sure, since you're both producing publications, how that works, but I know he's tied in with a lot of different things. I know he was working on a publication for JPL on all the technologies that they wanted to present.
Yeah, the one we're looking at has technology elements to it, but it usually tries to look at it in a more holistic or unique approach. So I don't. Hopefully, we wouldn't be competing too much with him.
Well, he's written about 20 books in space, so he's pretty ambidextrous, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he's not competing with us then.
Well, I'm not sure that he's competing with anybody. He just, I'm not sure what makes him tick, actually, but he's a wealth of information and produces a really high quality product.
Who's all going to the Space Development Conference this year? Anybody here going there?
Not me.
Not you? No.
Although the Moon Society has been asked to run the moon track for ISDC, so somebody should be there.
I'm going, so I don't know if I'd see anyone else there.
Yeah, I don't know who else is going from the society. I mean, I imagine a couple of our people that live. Where is it going to be this year?
Arlington, so Washington.
Arlington. Yeah, we've got a couple people there that live in the area, so they'll probably show up.
I'm coming from Canada, so I got to figure out. Hopefully, they don't still have this. You need a negative COVID test 24 hours before, because all the testing places say, yeah, we'll give it to you within 48 hours, which is kind of useless if you need to get on a plane.
They do still have that, because I was going to be going to Mexico a few weeks ago and it got canceled, but the requirement to get back into the US is a negative COVID test 24 hours before you come back to the US.
Some of those are being relaxed pretty soon. Although, not without controversy.
Yeah, luckily we just came back from Mexico, and I think the week before they had relaxed that requirement, so that was good.
So get back on topic. Isa, I had another question. Do you know what the minimum vehicle size would be for putting something into the TLI and getting it to GEO?
I think it kind of depends on how much mass you want to be put.
Right. Could you use like a a Falcon 9, would that work? Or does it have to be a heavy or?
Absolutely. Our launch is actually a Falcon 9,
Okay.
our 2023 mission, and it's rather right for at least the scope that we're considering now.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, Falcon 9s are terrific and cheap relatively.
Yeah. At least publicly known how expensive they are.
Well, yes. Excellent. So basically anything that could get you up into a decent, low Earth orbit with a decent sized payload could probably do this then.
Yep. Anything that's got good push capability is right sized for us. Some of the smaller launches, maybe not so much, but even so, like there are a whole bunch of new space launchers that do have the capabilities for it. But yeah, the size of it will vary just based off of the mass that you're pushing around.
Right. But if you wanted to put something, relatively low mass, you could use a cheaper launcher. I mean, that's pretty exciting.
Absolutely. Also, I apologize if anyone can hear my cat meowing in the background.
Oh, that's fine. We're informal here. All right, guys, any more questions or comments?
Sorry, so this is just purely for my own, not being a rocket scientist. What kind of propulsion would you be using? I'm guessing chemical to get it up so quick, or?
Yep, I'm a chemical propulsion person. I actually started in startups in chemical propulsion, specifically. But I like chemical propulsion because it just makes the mission go a lot faster. Yeah, so that'll be our first choices.
Cool.
Particular type of propulsion are you looking at?
What was that?
Fuel-wise, what are you looking at? Are you looking at hydrogen, oxygen? Are you looking at hydrazine? What are you, methane? What are you looking at?
Yeah, our first mission is with, of course, with space flight and the Sherpa Baseline's benchmark propulsion system, which is hydrogen peroxide. So nice green chemical propulsion.
Exciting, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Come on, guys, this is cool stuff.
I'm just wondering if you're doing the translunar injection, again, not being a rocket scientist, how much delta V, like let's say if you wanted to drop something off in lunar orbit, like would you be able to do that on your way there, or?
Yeah, so there's been a couple missions that we've considered, or a couple missions that we're considering for future manifesting, where we would do a separation of a payload or like, CubeSat at the highest point in our orbit, which is super close to the moon. So long as that system has its own propulsion capabilities, we can pop off somebody and then they can do their own lunar orbit as well.
Cool.
Very neat.
Yeah.
Got a quick question since it is so cool and there is some pretty awesome questions we can ask. Have you been approached at all by potentially like Lunar Positioning System or other companies that would be looking at something like that, either positioning or communications?
For us, we've talked to a whole bunch of companies that have comms capabilities just to try and see if, for us to add some of their systems onto our platform. So we are definitely trying to make those connections as well.
Okay, well, it looks like we've run out of steam. Thanks so much, Isa. That was really cool. We're really rooting for you guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for showing up. Next meeting will be, next month, same time, same place. I think that's pretty much it. Everybody have a good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.